Welcome to Professor Grunsplatter's Spookatorium. I am your curator, Professor Grunsplatter. Beyond these doors crouch the wonders, horrors, and wry smiles of an uncanny world. This world, your world. Should you choose to come inside, the sounds and stories that the shadows tell will be yours to behold. Make no mistake, it is a place of questions, not answers. A place where the tickle in your belly or the twitch in your eye simply mean you're paying attention. But then if you weren't curious, you wouldn't be here. There will be no refunds once you enter. Thank you for your attention, and the brave ones, come with me.
After we shot the grizzly, after the airship crashed, after we lost the compass, after the radio went dead, we shot and ate the horses, we marched through deadly swamps, inside a limestone cave, I found a human skull. Yes, Mary, I found a human skull. The captain caught a fever. We tied him to a tree. We stared into the fire and tried not to hear his screams. I killed a tiny antelope, not scared by my approach. We turned it over dying flames as we huddled in the glow. Yes, Mary, we huddled in the glow. Skin and bones, only 5 could safely float. The others stood upon the shore. They screamed and threw sharp stones. Yes, Mary, they threw the sharpest stones. But how the sea did spin us, how the waves did roar. The captain jumped into the storm, then we were but 4. One by one we chose our straws, till only I remained. But Mary, you are with me now, all around me in the waves. Yes, Mary, you are in the waves.
you see into the future, mirror boy? Do you know the day that I will die? Can you see into the other side? Can you see into the other side, mirror boy? Can you see all their secrets, mirror boy? All their money and where they hide it, mirror boy. Was it murder or a suicide, arson, theft, or madness, mirror boy? To the future, mirror boy. Do you know the day that I will die? Can you see into the other side? Can you see into the other side, mirror boy? Into the future, mirror boy, mirror boy, mirror boy.
That was Hexvessel with Mirror Boy, and this is episode 35 of Professor Gruntsplatter's Spookatorium. Before that was Helge Sten with Microwave 3, and that's from a three-way split between John Hegre, Lasse Marhag, and Helge Sten, called The Comfort of Objects. And then opening the show was The Handsome Family with After We Shot the Grizzly. I can't believe I haven't played that song before because it is brilliant, but it looks like I haven't. Coming up on the show, we've got a story about the photographer William Mortensen. I was fortunate to get to see a showing of some of his work this past week and picked up the monograph American Grotesque of his work. And we'll also look at Swiss medium Helene Smith, who is perhaps best known for her claims that she astral traveled to Mars back in the late 1800s. First, though, here is Four Horsemen from the new album Parade Nocturne, and this track is called Are you still alone in your dreams? That last track was Ivillion off the Sartanol release. The track was called Hexvessel. I think I have 3 releases from them, and they are all exceptional. It's a project of Michael Weeks, who has several projects, so perhaps this one has slipped through the cracks a little bit with the public, but all of this Ivillion material is consistently great. And opening the set before that was 4 Horsemen with Are You Still Alone in Your Dreams. Join me in the Spookatorium Portraiture Gallery, home to some of history's more eccentric characters. Born in 1861 as Catherine Mueller, she would later become known as a controversial and celebrated medium under the name Helene Smith in the late 1800s. Something I think worth noting up front is that Helene didn't work as a paid medium. She offered seances to her friends and admirers in Geneva, but through it she held a normal job and was not using her purported abilities for financial gain. Her events included things like claiming she had been both a Hindu priest and Marie Antoinette in past lives. One of the spirits she claimed to summon was a contemporary of Marie Antoinette, the Italian sorcerer Cagliostro, and also she claimed to have contact with author Victor Hugo. But it wasn't just these bold claims that drew attention to her. Smith frequently would also speak in tongues and would submit to automatic writing in Arabic. Her automatic writing output was significant enough that years later, her work and others led André Breton, considered the founder of the Surrealist art movement, to write an essay called The Automatic Message. This explored the concept that automatic writing and drawing as it related to surrealism. His feeling ended up being that while the medium and the artist are both accessing either a supernatural or a subconscious force, the medium would attempt to disassociate with it and let the message come through without their influence, where the artist would look to unify with it. Helene's most noted claim to fame was that she professed to astral travel to Mars. She insisted that while in trance, the spirits would take her to Mars, and as proof, she would produce simple drawings of what she'd seen and automatic writing that she said was in the Martian language. The boldness of the claim and the public acceptance of what she was saying led to her being studied by Theodore Florney, a well-respected professor of psychology of the day. And he seemed to appreciate Smith's capabilities on some level and found it difficult to draw comparisons between her behavior and that of someone who he would deem to be mentally ill. He ended up spending 5 years sitting in on her seances, attempting to corroborate the historical claims that she made, studying her personal history, and he never felt comfortable completely ruling out that she had some telepathic ability, but he also believed that she had a very broad imagination. She had a spirit guide that she called Leopold, and he was of the belief that this could be a second personality. The languages in her automatic writing were found to be 98% traced to known languages, but they were more involved than that. For instance, each Martian letter had a corresponding French letter. Florney included his findings in the book called From India to the Planet Mars, published in 1900. The thing I find interesting about that is that it would almost be like writing automatic writing in a cipher if they're trying to draw letter-to-letter comparisons between the Martian language and French. After the release of the book, she refused to cooperate with Florney, but the exposure she received from his book led an American spiritualist to offer her a salary, and she quit her job to devote her time to her spiritual works. Spookatorium exists to showcase music and ideas. I am not an expert at anything, and I have no agenda beyond fostering curiosity. The show is not monetized on any platform. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and others. A video version is available on the Cryonic Mind YouTube page. If you can like, subscribe, comment, etc., it helps the show's visibility. If your music was featured here and you'd prefer it was not, let me know and I will remove it from the feed. You can reach the show at spookatorium@gmail.com. The website can be found at spookatorium.org, and your comments are always welcome. Thanks very much for spending some time here. Opening that set was Rituals with Cognitive Dissonance. There are a few rituals out there. That one is from Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. After that was second Spectre with Fear God from their release A Cast of Memories. And the last track you heard was Le Marche des Ombres from Dark Circuitry. Scratching for ways to define the ineffable, humanity's fever to understand the other finds voice through its artistry. It is always a special thing to stand in the same space as art you appreciate. No matter how many reproductions you see in books or elsewhere, it is never the same experience that you have in its presence. It's important that we remember that. I got to see a collection of photographer William Mortensen's work here locally at a little gallery called Weird War. It looks like the University of Arizona has a nice collection of his works, if any of you are in that part of the world. I'm not going to get into Mortensen's biography too much. There has been a lot written about him. The two primary collections of his work are Monsters and Madonnas and American Grotesque. Ansel Adams referred to him as the Antichrist. Popular Photography magazine called him one of the greatest photographers and teachers of photography in the world. And those two opinions summarize what he did pretty nicely. He was heavily active in 1920s Hollywood, photographing starlets and also creating monster masks for Todd Browning's 1928 film West of Zanzibar that starred Lon Chaney, Lionel Barrymore, and Mary Nolan. Some of those masks would also appear in the more esoteric side of his photography. That contrast of glamour and the ineffable, beauty and bright lights juxtaposed with the misshapen and the shadows that they cast. His style was at times crisp and at others so diffused that at first glance they could also almost be mistaken for exquisite pencil drawings. I'll add a few of these images to the video version if you aren't familiar with his work. I'm just going to talk about a handful of quotes from the artist because its similar ideas and intentions are among the reasons that I do this show. The strange stories and music here complement each other as far as I'm concerned, in that a world without mystery and questions would not produce the music that I play, and without the art inspired by that strangeness, curiosity would not lurch forward into new undiscovered places. And Mortensen sought to frequently evoke that sense of wonder, and that, in my mind, really is the point. He viewed imagination as something eternal, and this is something that I hope to talk about as a general idea more when I compile some of my thoughts around the work of Patrick Harpur, and this quote from Morton speaks to it. Imagination is an active power that demands creative outlet. Even the death of the individual cannot destroy the imagination, for that which is clearly and strongly imagined partakes of eternity. In another instance, he says reality, the substantial world of shapes, colors, lights and darks, people and personalities with which we are surrounded, is the material which all graphic artists must deal. To some of them, reality is something to embrace, to others something to be molded, and to still others something to plunge into and pass beyond. The thought that there are unsuspected universes within our grasp, limitless fields of exploration no further away than the end of our noses, is like a cold wind blowing from the spaces between the stars, causing us to dream and wonder, strangeness added to beauty. Through technique, the mechanical is bent to the needs of the creative. In the sense of the word, most photographers completely lack technique. They have acquired mechanical skill, some have creative ability, but few have managed to bridge the gap between the two. He likes to talk about the subject as idea a lot, that, for example, a face in the crowd as an inspiration for what it might represent or what mythology it may speak to, and not capturing that face in the moment, but creating that idea and capturing that. As a result, his work references mythology, demonology, the occult, and beyond. Mortensen's work and his depth of knowledge of the field is a deep well. I would encourage you to look further into his work if that was at all interesting for you. This also reminded me that in the early days of both photography and cinema, how urgent the need was to try and quantify the uncanny, whether it's the macabre stop-motion animation of Vladislav Starowick as early as 1906 that used taxidermy animals and insects, or 1922's Haxan or Nosferatu. The Universal Monster legacy started in 1923 with The Hunchback of Notre Dame. There's the classic 1929 animation of the skeleton dance, and so on. The idea of spirit photography wasn't too far behind the invention of the camera either. It's clearly a need to both understand and express these nagging ideas that everything is not as it seems. This track is called Photographs from Coeur. That was Stem Cell Research Project with Transcending the Threshold. Prior to that was a track called Something Came Out of the Well by Stefan Bachmeier from the record Anomaly on Meadow Lane. And opening the set was Coeur with Photographs. I think we have come to the end of another episode. I forgot to mention this last time. I'm not going to continue adding shows to Mixcloud. I doubt any of you were listening to it there anyway. The site is a graveyard, and to continue adding shows there would cost money, and it's not worth it to me. So thank you again for visiting the Spookatorium. I'm going to close out with Council of Nine. This is a track from the Diagnosis record. This is Void of Regret.